This program is brought to you by Emory University.
Court is in session. Court is in order. Please take your seats.
I won't point it.
We're now going to call the case of Love versus Regency. Before we start with the first examination, you know that this is a demonstration, so it's part of an exercise to help prepare you for what's going to be happening tomorrow and throughout the rest of the course. You're going to see a demonstration of a direct examination of Dr. Stanley Love by his quite able and capable counsel, Betty Butchko. And you're going to see a penetrating cross-examination by opposing counsel, Ed Stein. One dynamic that will happen is that objections will be raised, and typically the objections would be heard as a matter of sidebar and not in the presence of the jury, but for your benefit, we're going to let the attorneys make the objection and we'll rule quickly and move forward so that we can get to the presentation of the evidence. With that, the case is called to order. Counsel, please call your first witness.
May it please the court. Our first witness of the day is Dr. Stanley Love.
Dr. Stanley Love, are you present? Please raise your right hand to be sworn. Tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
Counsel,
Thank you, Judge.
proceed. You'll have 20 minutes.
Your Honor, may I have a 2-minute warning?
You may.
Thank you. Dr. Love, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Why don't you introduce yourself to the members of the jury?
Stanley Love. I'm a medical doctor.
What is your specialty as a medical doctor?
Dermatology and cosmetic surgery.
Where do you work?
I work at the practice of Stanley Love, MD, PC, here in Nita City in the county of Nita.
Who are the shareholders of that professional corporation?
I'm the sole shareholder of that.
So, in other words, you're the owner of the company, correct?
That's correct.
So, Dr. Love, this courtroom is not the best suited courtroom, and the way that you're seated right now, you have your back to the members of the jury. So if you can turn the other way, I would really appreciate it, and I think they would too.
I apologize.
No problem. Doctor, how long have you worked at Stanley Love MDPC?
Approximately 25 years. It started 25 years ago.
Tell the members of the jury how it is that you ended up at that practice.
Well, when I finished my residency at the University of Michigan, I moved back to Center City, and I became acquainted with a doctor by the name of Eric Brown, who's a very fine dermatologist in our area, and I began working with him, and eventually, about 25 years ago, I bought out Eric's practice when he retired, and he's actually now in Miami.
Do you have, in addition to the office in Central City, do you have offices anywhere else?
No, it's just myself. What you see is what you get. That's it.
Are you married?
I am.
What is your wife's name?
My lovely bride is Bobby, and she works with me at the office.
How long have you been married?
We actually met during my residency when I was at the University of Michigan. She was a grad student there.
And you said that she works with you?
Yes, she does.
What is her occupation?
Well, obviously she's not a doctor, but she runs the business side of our medical practice. She does the marketing, she keeps the books, and she does the scheduling.
Doctor, I think you mentioned to the jury a little bit about your education. Please explain to the jury your specialty and any certifications that you have in that field.
Well, I went to undergraduate. I received a Bachelor of Science degree from the University of Illinois, and then University of Northern Illinois, and then I went to medical school at the University of Illinois, and I earned a medical degree. I did a residency at the University of Michigan, and of course, while I was at the University of Illinois Medical School, I did the full rounds in terms of surgery and all different types of practices that enabled me to be a licensed medical doctor here in Nita.
What type of medical procedures does your practice consist of today?
Well, we obviously do dermatology, which involves dealing with maladies of the skin, and then we have a surgical component to that practice, which involves more invasive procedures in terms of doing surgical procedures on the eyelids and so forth.
You told the members of the jury that you are a board-certified dermatologist. What is a board certification?
Sure. Well, every state establishes their own requirements for certification, and in order to be board certified in dermatology in this particular state, the one that we live in, the one that I've always worked in and lived in, you actually have to take a series of exams, and some are oral and some are written, and you have to meet certain requirements, and you actually have to recertify every several years.
Now, dermatology is a practice area that deals with the skin surface, and I'm basically giving a very loose description.
Right.
In terms of your surgery practice, tell the members of the jury what kind of surgical procedures you perform and what qualifications you have to perform those.
Well, I mean, when you have a medical degree, it qualifies you to be a licensed medical doctor, and as medical doctors have surgery rounds that they are required to partake in. So the invasive part, that most people think of the cutting with a scalpel and so forth, we all learn that in medical school. And so what I do is, obviously, in addition to the dermatological practice that I have, which is less invasive, prescribing medicine and salves and so forth, we actually have a practice, or I have a practice where we use a scalpel and we do stitches, and we remove fatty areas underneath the eyelids and make the eyelids a little bit smoother, remove the puffiness, and so we engage in that kind of surgery in the facial area and other parts of the body.
Just briefly describe for the jurors the type of cosmetic surgical procedures that you perform at your corporation.
Liposuction, the eyelid work that we do involves surgical procedures, areas around the face. I mean, there's just an array of surgical procedures that we perform.
Okay, doctor, let's transition away from the work that you do as a physician, and let's move into the practice of medicine from a financial standpoint.
Sure.
Okay. How did patients originally come into your office?
Well, originally I came in back to Center City, and I worked for Eric Brown, and I was treating his patients. And then obviously, as my reputation grew and I got older, got more acclimated in the community where I've been here for so many years, decades actually, I began to get referrals from patients that I had treated, and of course physicians, internists were referring me patients because they understood they knew my reputation, they knew that I wasn't going to pass the work off, the surgical care, the medical care, to nurses or those who actually didn't have a medical degree, an MD degree here in NEDA, that I would be treating everybody individually. And I think that's what was important with regard to the referrals, and I built my practice that way.
Did your practice shift from a referral-based practice to something else?
Well, we've always had a base referral practice, which is critically important to us. But what happened was, a number of years ago, we actually began a marketing effort, and it really was, and I credit my lovely wife of so many years for really coming up with the idea and working on this, is we began a marketing campaign.
Did you have assistance from anyone or any entity with your marketing campaign?
Well, you know, my wife and I talked it over, and of course my name's Love, and we thought about the look of love and the love look, you know, and my wife had said to patients as they were coming in, because she'd sit out there and be the receptionist sometimes, and she'd say, "Oh, are you here for the look of love?" And, you know, people kind of, the love look or the look of love, used both sometimes, you know, interchangeably, but ultimately she ended up saying the love look. And so we thought, you know, maybe we'll do a campaign around that. And so there was a gentleman in our building, Ed Gamble, who owns a small advertising agency, and he and I sometimes go to get lunch together, and he said, you know, this is something you should think about. And with his help, we began to do that.
What was the first type of advertising that the Gamble Agency produced for you?
Well, you know, they worked with us. We didn't have a contract with the Gamble Agency, so it was a kind of a favor. He was a member of the community, the building community at least, and so the first thing we did was we did a small brochure that we handed out, and then we expanded to some newspaper advertising.
All right. Showing Exhibit 1 for identification to opposing counsel. That would be you, Ed. Ed. Showing Exhibit 1 to opposing counsel.
Objection.
For identification. Your Honor, may I approach the witness? Dr. Love, I'm showing you what has been marked for identification as Plaintiff's Exhibit 1. Do you recognize that exhibit?
Yes, I do.
What is that?
This is the brochure that I was just talking about.
Is it the front and back?
Yes, it is.
Does it fairly and accurately depict the initial brochures and the brochures that you were using from the Gamble Agency to market your practice in print form?
It absolutely does, and there's my picture on the top right side.
Okay, thank you very much. Your Honor, the plaintiff moves Exhibit 1 for identification into evidence.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
Your Honor, may we publish this exhibit? And to my able assistant, if you could put up slide 2, please. Okay, briefly, Doctor, tell the members of the jury what they're looking at here.
Okay, so the top left-hand side actually depicts the types of a summary of the procedures that that I provide, and I would say our office, but really I'm the only one in the office who provides these procedures. So the procedures are that I provide. And that's a picture of me on the right side, and in the middle, obviously, is a map of how to get to our office. And then there's some before and after pictures of at least one particular patient that I treated a number of years ago in the middle, and then some pictures of our office. And our office staff, that's my wife at to the bottom right-hand side, Bobby, and my assistant just underneath her.
And up above your picture is what?
The love look.
And what's the significance of that?
You know, it's just a fanciful, catchy phrase that characterizes my practice.
Okay, very well. Okay, thank you, Paul. You can take that down for me. Now, in addition to printed advertising, did the Gamble Agency produce any other type of advertising?
Well, it's an interesting question. We ran the newspaper ads. We did some updates on the brochures, and then ultimately we went to cable TV advertising, and we produced over a period of time six cable TV commercials.
And so I'm showing Exhibit 8A for identification to opposing counsel.
Fine.
Stipulate to this one.
Stipulated, yes.
Your Honor, Exhibit 8A for identification, counsel is offering a stipulation which I accept, and so therefore I move 8A for identification into evidence.
So stipulated.
All right, and may I publish the commercial? Yes? Okay, thank you, Judge.
But you aren't getting any younger. You owe it to yourself. You won't regret it.
Dr. Love, I can't thank you enough. It's now 6 months since my surgery, and I still get daily compliments. The difference is the love look.
The love look says it all. You brought the love back into my marriage.
I had my doubts, but I'm not cynical now. I'm a believer in the love look.
These are but a few of the hundreds of letters I've received from my patients. Now that's trust. Trust in the love look. Now you can trust in the love look too. For a limited time, I'm offering a free initial consultation. Come to my newly redecorated office in Central City for a free consultation and find out what the love look can do for you. You owe it to yourself.
Dr. Stanley Love is board certified in dermatology and a fellow of the American Academy of Cosmetic Surgery. His offer is subject to certain conditions.
Thank you, Paul.
I think that was one of the earlier versions when I was younger.
Well, it appears that you may have had some cosmetic surgery to change your identity yourself, but that's for another day. All right. So, Doctor, Could you just briefly mention, talk to the jurors about some of the highlights in that commercial in terms of your practice and the marketing of your practice?
Well, you know, it's funny. We debated this, and we used those letters. I get those kind of letters, the thank you letters, people telling me how happy they are, and I save them. Because, you know, when you practice medicine the way we do, and we're not a corporate practice, we're just you know, I'm an old-fashioned doctor who, you know, wants to learn new procedures and keep up and know patients and treat them and hear how happy they are. And it just, I mean, I saved those over the years, and it's just an incredible feeling. It's about the patient for me.
Did you ever register the Love Look with any government agency or get a patent or a trademark for that?
You know, I'm just a doctor. Why would I do that? You know, I really thought there was no need. I mean, being here in court, I mean, this is a strange thing for me. This is not what I do.
Dr. Love, let's shift away now from the advertising campaign to what, if any, effect the campaign had on your practice and in the public or in the community.
Well,
what evidence did you see regarding the strength and effectiveness of the Love Look ad campaign?
Well, it was actually remarkable. When I first agreed with my wife to do this, I was skeptical that it would have any impact, but it was quite stunning. I mean, we actually tripled the amount of cosmetic surgery that we were doing. You know, obviously the dermatological side of it was stable, but what I loved doing, what was challenging, what was intriguing, what I found I was really good at, was the cosmetic side of it, and it was just markedly increased.
Different types of procedures?
Yes, absolutely.
Now, so in addition to the increase in cosmetic surgery that you were being asked to perform by new patients, do you have any evidence, did you learn of any ways that the Love Look was actually impacting the community? You
know, NIDA is, as many people as there may be here in this community, it's not obviously not, it's not a megalopolis like New York City, and we kind of know lots of people. And you know, I'd go to dinner with my wife, and I'd just hear people talking about the commercial, the Love Look at the next table. Friends would talk about it, and you get that feeling that people really catch on to this. And people thought, in some ways, it was amusing, but obviously, they also thought that really this was about rendering quality medical care that was personal in an age where we live with sort of a corporate medical regime that we're subservient to.
Did you ever hear new patients coming in the practice referencing the Love Look?
All the time, and it became quite common.
Your Honor, I object to what other people said about the Love Look. It's hearsay.
Yes, Your Honor, this is not offering for the truth of the matter being asserted, but it is offered for to prove the impact that the ad campaign had on the community, and it is one of the elements that the Supreme Court has dictated in that's required for me to prove in order to get an injunction in common law trademark cases.
Objection overruled.
Thank you, Judge.
The answer will
Your Honor, may I have a limiting instruction at an appropriate time?
And so just back to where we were, you mentioned patients coming into the office. Did there come a time when did there come a time in September of 2010 when something unusual happened regarding a patient that came into your office?
Yeah, so we were getting such a positive response from this campaign, the campaign I was talking about earlier, that we continued the advertising. We did 6 versions. And then something happened that was kind of really weird. It just struck me as weird. A patient came in and said that they'd like to make an appointment with our Oakdale office. And I'm like, I get a double take. We don't have an Oakdale office. What's that all about? And so we did some inquiries, looked at the internet, did some research, and we found out that, in fact, there was this other entity, Regency, that was essentially trading on our brand.
And you said you went on the internet?
Yeah,
You mentioned to the jury that you pulled up an entity called Regency.
Yes.
Did you see on the internet an ad campaign associated with Regency?
Yes.
And you mentioned that there were similarities. Explain that to the jury.
Well, you know, they were using the phrase, you know, the look of love, and ours was the love look. And in our printed media, we had used half of our advertisement was a woman who had benefited from our surgery, and they were using a very similarly, a woman who looked very, very similar. And it seemed to us, and I never heard the word font before, but when I talked to Ed Gamble about it, he was my colleague or friend in our building who does advertising. The font looked similar in terms of the typesetting on the logo was really structured in a very remotely similar way in terms of the letters were situated and slanting and so forth.
Okay.
You have 1 minute.
So later we'll show those to the jury. Okay, doctor, let's fast forward to any harm that your practice may have suffered as a result of the Regency office opening in Oakdale.
Well, you know, our revenue dropped just by probably about I'd say over 35% because of this.
Did there come a time where you contacted the Regency office in Oakdale?
Yeah. You know, at first I thought, okay, well, let's live with it because I don't like disputes. I don't like the idea of being in court. And then I wrote a letter to Regency, and I brought it to their attention that they had this extraordinarily similar, you know, trademark, and then they wrote me a letter back.
And just for the sake of brevity, that letter is in evidence. The jury can see it. Was that letter written to Dr. Sagan?
Yes, that's right.
And did she change her advertising plan as a result of you asking her to stop?
You know, I was surprised, not one bit. I thought that that was something they didn't need to do. I thought that it was a reasonable suggestion and nothing happened.
Okay, counsel, you'll be allowed to call Dr. Love back to the stand. For the sake of judicial economy, we're going to allow cross-examination at this time.
Very well, Judge. Thank you so much. I tender the witness. Time flies. You didn't hear me whisper.
I can hear you.
I know.
Dr. Love, good evening.
Good evening.
I notice you don't have a copy of your deposition with you, so let me give it to you just in case we need it, all right?
Okay.
I want to take you back 13 years ago when you started advertising your medical practice, all right?
Okay.
Good. It was at that time that you first started discussing the look of love as a possible slogan, correct?
It was discussed.
Yes. In fact, you and your wife wanted to use the look of love as your slogan. That was your first choice, wasn't it?
It was amongst our discussions.
Yes. And then you had a discussion with Ed Gamble, your advertising person.
Yes.
And based on your discussion with Ed Gamble, as you said in your deposition, you changed the slogan to the love look, correct?
No, I don't think that's correct.
Why don't you look at page 12, lines 1 through 3 in your deposition, and see if you said that you changed the slogan.
Right, but I think when I used the word changed, Mr. Stein, okay, changed was in the context of that's something we were thinking about, but what was ultimately put in print, right, was not changed.
In any event, you decided not to use the look of love because of possible legal complications?
I'm not sure what you mean by legal complications.
Well, you said there might be legal problems. That was your testimony. Ed Gamble told you there might be legal problems. And it was because there might be legal problems you decided not to use the look of love. Fair?
I think what Ed Gamble suggested to us was that it's not necessarily something that could be registered.
So you decided to use a different slogan.
I think we established that.
Yes. And the different slogan you picked was the love look.
That is the one we went with, yes.
Because 13 years ago, it was different enough for you, wasn't it?
Different enough from what, sir?
From your standpoint.
From my what?
From your standpoint. You chose to use the love look as a different slogan, different from the look of love.
I chose to use the love look as a different slogan from the look of love?
Yes. Correct?
We chose to use the love look, period. That's
Yes.
what was in our media. That was what was in our television advertising, Mr. Stein.
And now it's your claim that your campaign with the love look and Regency's campaign with the look of love are too similar. That's your claim in this lawsuit, isn't it?
Are too similar?
Too similar.
I think that's fair, yes.
Yes. And your claim is that your medical practices are similar.
I think there are parts of our medical practices that are extraordinarily similar, if not identical.
And you're claiming because of those similarities, you've lost over $1.1 million in surgical fees over the past 6 years.
No, I don't think you're properly characterizing the totality of our claims, Mr. Stein. But you know, quite frankly, Mr. Stein, I'm just not a lawyer. I think there's a lot more to it than that, sir.
Sammy Forrester is your CPA.
Yes, he is.
Sammy Forrester is your friend.
Yes, he is.
Sammy Forrester is going to be your witness in this case.
I don't know.
You don't know who your witnesses are in this case?
Mr. Stein, that's why Regency hired you, and that's why I have my counsel, Ms. Butchko. These are terrific lawyers, and how they plan to litigate the case.
Okay, Dr. Love.
I mean, I assume you have to ask them.
Dr. Love, you don't know if Sammy Forrester is your witness in this case?
Mr. Forrester is a witness. Whether Mr. Forrester will be called is something you'll have to talk to my lawyer about, Mr. Stein.
Dr. Love, let's look at the advertising campaigns, all right?
Yes, sir.
Here's a screenshot of your TV ad, Exhibit 8.
Okay.
Correct?
That is correct, sir.
And it shows on the right-hand side of that screenshot a picture of an attractive woman. Agreed?
I think that's a fair statement.
And there's nothing unusual about a picture of an attractive woman in an ad, is there?
There's nothing unusual about a picture of an attractive woman in an ad?
That's what I'm asking you.
Are you asking me, like, for example, in the New York Times Magazine section? I'm not sure what you're asking me, sir.
Dr. Love, how old are you?
50.
50?
50.
Based on your 50 years of life, wouldn't you agree that attractive women in advertising are not uncommon?
Well, you know, Mr. Stein, these days things are a little different. You know, I was reading, it's interesting you asked that question because I was reading
Dr.
Sports
Love,
Illustrated and I saw Joe Namath doing
no
an ad.
pending to Dr. Love.
I'm sorry, excuse me, sir?
There's no question pending. Wait till I ask a question and then would you try to answer it for me?
I apologize, Mr. Stein.
Thank you. Now, not only is there a picture of an attractive woman in your ad, that's the right-hand side,
Right.
but on the left-hand side is a picture of you. Correct?
Right, now that I'll stipulate is not an attractive picture.
And Dr. Love, of all of the advertising you know of anywhere, the only ad that has a picture of you is your ad. Correct?
I think that's a reasonable statement, yes.
And at the bottom of the ad, it has your name, Dr. Stanley Love, right?
Yes.
And the only ad you know anywhere that has your name, Dr. Stanley Love, on it is your ad. Correct?
Yes.
Now here's Regency's ad.
Right.
Right? Is your picture anywhere on this ad?
No, it's not.
No, and your name, Dr. Stanley Love, is nowhere on this ad, is it?
On that ad? Is that the complete ad?
Yes, your name, Dr. Stanley Love, is not on that ad, is it?
Based on what you're showing, I think we can agree on that, sir.
No, but Regency's name is on the ad, isn't it?
I think that's kind of obvious, yes.
Yes, it's not on your ad.
No, it's not.
So in that sense, the ads are not the same, are they?
I don't think, Mr. Stein, that our contention is that the ads are word for word the same. Obviously, you have an Oakdale address that we don't. I think our contention is that the ads are very similar.
Dr. Love, I didn't ask you what your contention was.
I have to object at this point. These exhibits, or Exhibit 7 mischaracterizes the evidence. Exhibit 8 is a snapshot of a commercial. Exhibit 7 is a still printed ad. And so it's an unfair use of the exhibit. It's not a fair characterization.
Okay, your objection is noted, it's overruled, and you'll have a chance to clear that up on redirect examination.
Thank you, Judge.
And Dr. Love, not only is Regency's name on Regency's ad and not yours, but Regency's address is on Regency's ad, correct?
I think we've established that, yes, sir.
And it's not on your ad, either on this screenshot or anywhere in the 30-second ad, is it?
I think that's a very reasonable statement, yes, sir.
Yes. And in Regency's ad, the term plastic surgery or plastic surgeon is used 3 times, correct?
I'm sorry, excuse me?
Yes. The term plastic surgery or plastic surgeons is used 3 times in the Regency ad.
Or if you're talking about what's running up and down the far right side?
I'm talking about what's circled on the ad. You can see that, Dr. Love.
I'm turning my head. 1, 2, I think so, yes.
Okay, Dr. Love. And also, the R with a circle around it. That's on the Regency ad, but you don't have an R with a circle around it anywhere on your ad, anywhere in the commercial, do you?
I don't have, you'll have to play me the commercial.
So in those senses, Dr. Love, the Regency ad and your ad are different.
Are you talking about the commercial or the ad?
The commercial, your commercial.
I think we just have to play the commercial and look at it.
I think we've played it and we've seen it. You're not claiming that you have put an R with a circle on it anywhere in your commercial, are you?
An R with a circle in my ad? On my commercial?
Yeah.
You know what? I have to tell you, the only thing I did was I sat there and I was videotaped, and then Mr. Gamble and his folks put that together. I just don't recall. If you tell me so, I believe you.
Now, the media that you use for your advertising is cable television, isn't it? Can be any of those channels.
That was a medium that we used, yes.
Yes. And you don't use high-end magazines, do you?
What do you mean by a high-end magazine?
High-end magazines. Magazines like I'm showing you here, Elle, High-End, or Vogue. You don't put your ads in magazines like those, do you?
I personally haven't read any of those magazines. Maybe my definition is a little different than yours. Mine would be like Sports Illustrated, but no, we don't advertise there either.
So the media that Regency uses and the media that you use are different, correct?
You have advertised in different publications than we have. I think is a fair statement, yes.
And now I want to talk about your claim that your medical practice is similar, all right?
Okay.
And let's start with the names of the practices.
Okay.
Your name is on top, Stanley Love PC, Dermatology and Cosmetic Surgery. That's right from your brochure, isn't it?
Are you talking on top of my brochure or on top of your name here in
the
this
slide that you're looking at, Dr. Love? You know what I'm talking about.
Yes, that's my name.
Yes.
Yes.
And the Regency ad from its magazine ad is Regency Plastic Surgery, a different name, correct?
I think we've established that already,
So
yes.
the names are different, aren't they?
I think that flows, yes.
And the locations are different, aren't they?
I don't think they want me operating in their office and they don't want to operate in my office.
Well,
I think that's fair.
You're not even in the same city, are you, Dr. Love?
We're in the exact same media market, sir.
You're in Central City, and Regency is in Oakdale, 25 miles north of Central City. Is that correct?
Yes, but Mr. Stein, bear in mind that the geographic distribution of these high-end publications are not limited by the geographic boundaries that you've outlined, and nor are the airwaves that carry my television commercials.
Dr. Love, did I ask you if you were in separate cities? Was that my question? Are you in separate cities?
Oakdale is not the same as Center City. I think we can agree on that, sir.
Right. And here's a picture of your Central City office. That's right from your brochure, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. And here's a picture of Regency's office in Oakdale.
Yes.
They don't look alike, do they?
I think that's a fair statement, yes.
Okay. And here's a picture of the interior of your office, right from your brochure. Kind of a homey atmosphere, wouldn't you agree?
We kind of like it that way, yes.
And here's a picture of Regency's waiting room. They don't look alike, do they?
Does not look like my office, no.
No, I didn't think so. But in addition to that, let's talk about the training you have compared to the training that the Regency surgeons have. Your post-medical school training, formal training, was in dermatology, correct?
Yes.
You took a residency in dermatology.
Right, but you asked me...
And that residency did not include cosmetic surgery when you took it, correct, sir?
Objection, Judge. He's asking questions and not letting the witness answer.
Your Honor, the witness wants to talk a lot beyond the answer to my question.
Objection will be sustained. The witness will be allowed to answer.
All right? Let me try to rephrase the question. You took your postgraduate training in dermatology, didn't you, Dr. Love?
Okay, so to be clear, because doctors are very specific about this, because we have an obligation of candor to our patients, I had a residency at the University of Michigan, but I have engaged in or taken other training other than the residency, which includes specifically cosmetic surgery, and that was about 15 years ago.
Your residency was in dermatology?
Yes, that's a fair statement.
And it did not contain cosmetic surgery at that time?
Correct.
Today it does. When you took a residency, it didn't. Correct, sir?
Yes.
And the surgeons at Regency took a residency both in general surgery and in plastic surgery. You know that, don't you?
I think you'll have to ask them.
Would you assume that with me, because Dr. Segan will testify as to that?
Objection, Judge. It calls for speculation. Asking the witness to assume a fact.
Your Honor, I'm asking the witness to assume it. I assure you there will be testimony as soon as Dr. Segan takes the stand.
Okay, the objection will be overruled. If you know the answer, you may answer.
You know, I've known Dr. Waters and Dr. Connolly for a number of years. I really don't know what their specific training is. I know they're fine doctors and fine gentlemen.
Okay. Would you just assume for me there will be testimony in this case that every Regency surgeon has taken a residency in general surgery and in plastic surgery?
I assume if you tell me that that's true.
Thank you.
Same
And if
objection.
that's true, that means they have had broader training in surgery than you had in residency. Correct, sir?
I think that's probably a true statement to some degree from a surgical perspective, yes.
The Regency surgeons are board certified in plastic surgery, correct?
That's what I understand.
That means they've taken a written exam and a verbal exam in front of a national board of surgeons and passed both those exams.
Absolutely.
And you have taken no board certification exam in any sort of surgery, have you, sir?
I have taken a board exam in dermatology which overlaps and encompasses some surgical procedures. Just as, for example, a psychiatrist might be competent with regard to dealing with some procedures that a neurologist would deal with. So they're not completely exclusive. There's an overlap.
You are not board certified in any surgical specialty, anything with the name surgery in it, are you?
Objection, Judge. It's asked and answered.
That's
Hey,
a fair, that is absolutely
Dr.
true.
Love,
That's true. That's
Dr.
absolutely
Love.
true. Yeah. Sorry. Oh.
The court rule.
Oh. Sorry.
But you do
The
perform...
objection will be overruled.
Thank you. I think the answer came.
All right, let's move on.
But your practice does contain some cosmetic surgery. You've told us that, correct?
Yes.
But you know that Regency's practice is entirely cosmetic surgery. You know that.
That's not what I understand, sir.
Okay. Well, you haven't read Dr. Segan's deposition in this case in which you're asking for a lot of money?
Objection, that's based on hearsay. It's his own client's statements out of court.
Counsel, let's have some foundation.
All right.
for
I want
these
you to
questions.
assume that there will be testimony that every Regency surgeon does cosmetic surgery and only cosmetic surgery.
Judge, I'm
Would
going to
you
have to
assume that
object.
fact?
The only witness that can assume a hypothetical is an expert witness. And so this is calls for speculation, and it's inappropriate.
Not true, Your Honor. We're going to put on testimony to that effect. Counsel knows it. There's going to be no testimony contradicting that.
Counsel, if you could just ask a question without assumptions. If the witness can answer, the witness will be allowed to answer. If you know the answer, please answer truthfully.
I thought, obviously, I honestly thought there was some overlap. If you're telling me that what they do is, that they don't do any dermatological work, obviously, I'd have to look at the exact procedures and determine what you determine to be the procedures. But so I don't know without looking at actually the ICD-9 codes, which are the diagnosis codes. That's the only way to tell this is to look at the ICD-9 codes.
The codes are for diseases, not procedures, aren't they, Doctor?
Well, you could use a procedural code, and there's an ICD-9 code. That would be, you could look at either. It would be one way of looking at it.
You only devote part of your medical practice to cosmetic surgery, correct?
That's true, but I want to be fair. I want to be fair, Mr. Stein. You really need to talk to me about the specific procedures, because it's hard to make these general statements, because you and I may be miscommunicating on how we define cosmetic surgery.
Okay, Dr. Love, so we're going to allow the attorney to ask the questions.
I apologize, Your Honor.
And there'll be 1 minute left.
Well, to the extent that you do non-surgical dermatology, on the one hand, and cosmetic surgery on the other hand, you have two different parts to your practice, correct?
I think that is a reasonable way of looking at it.
Yes, and so you are a part-time cosmetic surgeon and a part-time dermatologist.
Well, that would be
Judge,
like me saying, Mr. Stein.
Dr. Love, objection. It mischaracterizes the evidence.
Okay, overruled. Let me answer.
That would be like me saying, Mr. Stein, you're a part-time trial lawyer and you're a part-time some other kind of lawyer. I mean, it's really hard to discuss it like that.
Dr. Love, would you agree with me that the choice of a surgeon from a patient's standpoint, based on your experience, the choice of a surgeon can be a very important choice in someone's life?
I don't think there's any disagreement on that.
And you certainly wouldn't recommend someone choose a surgeon because they had a catchy slogan, would you?
I don't think that is the sole basis to choose a surgeon. That is
Who would
right.
recommend to a patient they choose a surgeon by perhaps word of mouth, asking their friends and family?
I think the issue, Mr. Stein, is being aware of the surgeon's existence and capabilities. The ultimate selection is really something different.
And with that, we're going to end the proceeding. Let's give our counsel a round of applause. Okay, just really a few points and takeaways. We're not gonna keep you. So in terms of the direct examination, one thing that we talked about is the use of the exhibit. So for the plaintiffs, I think you saw just a masterful use of exhibit number 1 and also of the advertising commercial. Both attorneys used head notes, throughout to move the testimony along. That helps not only the witness understand where to go, but I assume it helped all of you understand the value of the facts that were being brought out, because Betty was tying it back to her theory of the case. Also, take note of fronting information that might be, the witness might be impeached on cross. So she just asked him very directly, why didn't you ask for the trademark? Like, why didn't you file the necessary paperwork? And so you have the opportunity to like deal with difficult topics with your witness in a way that gives them the ability to respond fully. So cross-examination obviously is all about control. And Ed did a great job in controlling the witness. And you know, you may have thought, oh my gosh, it's like so tense. But the thing is, what's the dynamic? Like who really, you know, when you think about it, was the witness overreaching, right? And so yes, maybe the attorney had to work to control the witness, but did the witness really score all of the points by overreaching? And so I want you to consider that when you're doing your cross-examinations. Just because you have to get back in there and do a little witness control to keep the witness back on track, it doesn't mean that you're doing a bad job, okay? It means you're doing the job that you need to do. And there will be objections, right? And there will be objections even on cross-examination. You're going to win some, you're going to lose some. You need to know how to pick it up and keep moving, right? Keep moving so that, you know, what the jury hates is that everyone keeps coming up to the judge and arguing and leaving them out of it. So remember that too. Like you don't, you know, sometimes you just need to be able to leave your theory and the impression of what you need to argue and not win every battle. So with that, we'll let you go and we'll see you in the morning.